Happy Hump Day. I'll just leave it at that. Happy Hump Day. I hope you're enjoying your hump day. Anyway, I posted on my Facebook page this morning a cartoon, one of those homemade things that you use with a primitive old app. And I did it back in I don't know how many years ago I did it. But I used as part of the script for the cartoon. It's called, what is it called? It's called, Have You Heard the Good News? And, but, and it's really primitive and funky, very funky. But it's got thousands of views over the years. Okay, and anybody out there who does that stuff, if you want to redo it smoother, please, I welcome your help in redoing it, because it is kind of clever, but you can't understand all the words and stuff. But anyway, the text for that was taken from the very last chapter of my book, My Life with the Spirits. Now, if you don't have My Life with the Spirits, even if you're not a magical kind of person or interested in Crowley or any of that stuff, I do suggest that you at least read it. Go to the library and get it. Of course, I want you to buy a six-pack of them, but anyway, if you haven't read My Life with the Spirits, I encourage you, because year after year it becomes, it's better for me. It gets better every time I read it, and I was amazed at how I accidentally, well, it was one of my early works. Nevertheless, the text from that cartoon was taken from sections from my very last short little brief chapter, How to End an Autobiography Without Dying. And I'm going to share that with you today. But at the very beginning of the book, there's a chapter that's titled, I Am Born. And it's just sort of bookend the entire narrative. I'm going to read a little section from the I Am Born chapter, because it's referenced in that final chapter too. Let's see. Except for the frustration and embarrassment of incontinence, infancy was a perfectly delightful experience. Soon after I learned to walk, it was discovered that I was afflicted with Perthes disease in my right hip. Perthes is a serious bone malady that crumbles the topmost part of the thigh. In order to prevent complete disintegration of my hip socket, the doctors ordered me off my feet and back into the crib. This was fine with me. It meant I could comfortably lounge undisturbed for many hours each day, drifting blissfully in and out of consciousness. Constance is still having to get me out of bed, because I could probably lounge comfortably all day too. I'm really used to it. Unlike able-bodied children who, as soon as they began to walk and talk, lose the precious memories of their pre-linguistic inner life, my little brain was allowed to crystallize and permanently register those thoughts and images. As long as I was quiet, my mother was quite satisfied to leave me to my semi-conscious musings. Among these were visions of myself as an adult man, crouching in a dirt trench with half a dozen other men. It was at night, but the sky would brighten from time to time with brilliant explosions. Oddly enough, this image wasn't particularly frightening. But anyway, and I tell other sort of pre-incarnation memories. Okay, let's see. I only want you to know that the overriding character of my self-identity as an infant before I could even talk, was that of an adult trapped in an infant's body. I still possessed the emotions of a child. I couldn't read or write. I couldn't do calculus or play the violin. I was stupid, naive, and crabby as any child. I simply couldn't wait to grow up to feel like myself. This created a level of tension whenever I interacted with family members. I detested being patronized as a child and cursed my helpless conditions. I vividly remember after one particularly agonizing event, probably relating to food or poop, vowing in passionate babbles, I hate being a baby. If I ever grow up, I will never get myself in this position again. And here's why I'm reading this to you this morning. And without doubt, the most profound of these crib meditations was an exercise I practiced daily, whereby I pondered the nature of my own existence. Without the benefit of words to frame the questions, I somehow asked myself, was I off before I was on? If I weren't who I am, who would I be? Then I tried to imagine myself as not on. I never succeeded. Each time I imagined myself switched off, I instantly found myself switched on in another consciousness center. My brother, my mother, or father, or someone else. This frustrated me no end because if there's anything I did know, it was that I was I and nobody else. Nevertheless, I played this game every day in hopes that I would someday break out of the helical loop. And I finally gave up. Actually, I just surrendered to the fact that I've always been on, and that's that. Okay. That was at the very beginning of the book. Here's at the very end of the book. Believe me, this is not a spoiler. How to end an autobiography without dying. I'm now faced with the awkward task of ending an autobiography while still alive. Not only this, but this was years ago. I wrote this in 2090 something. 1999. I certainly do not intend to die anytime soon, just to provide a clean ending. But as I conclude this little book, it might not be a bad idea to pause for a moment to ponder that undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveler returns, and share with you my thoughts on death. Do I believe in an afterlife? Do I believe in karma and reincarnation? Do I believe in heaven or hell? Am I afraid to die? The answer to all these questions is a qualified yes. On the other hand, if you ask me if I believe when I die I will be hauled into some celestial courtroom to appear before the God of judgment who will convict me on evidence of my failure in life to sacrifice my intelligence and common sense in order to believe unquestioningly in a particular cult's interpretation of the details surrounding a historical or mythological event, and or my inability to or disinclination to submit to a particular collection of ancient superstitions and tribal taboos, then my answer is an unqualified no. Am I perpetually amazed? I am perpetually amazed that stable, intelligent people with driver's licenses and college degrees, people who can finish the New York Times crossword puzzle, people that can run huge corporations, people who otherwise display the most superior powers of intelligence and insight, can actually look me in the eye and tell me in deadly earnest that they believe that all human beings have been cursed by the creator of the universe because of the very fact that they were born. That because we are already guilty of committing life, the Creator has condemned us to eternal torture after we die. That we can plea bargain ourselves out of this fate by perfectly surrendering to certain mental and behavioral parameters that are outlined in a book composed of 66 chapters written over a period of hundreds of years by an unknown number of authors in an assortment of languages, an unerring book that has been translated scores of times by individuals employed by intensely biased institutions, that after we die, our corpses at some unspecified date in the future will animate like zombies and fly up from our graves and hover in the sky at the side of our deity who, sitting on a flying horse, will slaughter 1/3 of the population of the planet. Afterwards, this same deity will preside over the ultimate kangaroo court in the clouds and issue one-way tickets to the lake of fire to the newly murdered and all others who in life did not unquestionably believe this was the only spiritual game plan in town. I'm sorry, my friends, I cannot see how blindly accepting the above doctrine or any of 100 others just as ludicrous could possibly be good for one's mental health. As a matter of fact, it appears obvious to me that in order for a rational, intelligent person to subscribe to such silliness and still live a relatively normal life, he or she must set aside a small corner of the brain devoted exclusively to religious mental illness and visit that area as infrequently as possible. This does not mean that I think that individuals who fervently believe in a specific after-death scenario do not experience their expectations in the mysterious, timeless moments of the death coma. On the contrary, I think it highly likely that one's visions at the moment of death mirror, in perhaps nightmarish detail, the crystallized reality of whatever spiritual worldview has captured and enslaved the decedent's imagination in life. For this reason, I'm particularly saddened when I think of the untold millions of my fellow human beings who have exited this plane of existence, still harboring torturous doubts as their worthiness to pass such an impossible judgment. Shouldn't religions be satisfied with terrorizing their devotees into social and economic obedience during life? Is it really necessary to demand from these poor souls one last act of tragic self-condemnation, insidiously designed to trigger horrifying visions and unspeakable terror during the death experience? In 1954, I was 6 years old and loved to listen to the radio. That year, one of my favorite songs was Rosemary Clooney's "This Old House." The refrain went something like this. Ain't a gonna need this house no longer, ain't a gonna need this house no more. Ain't got time to fix the shingles, ain't got time to fix the floor, ain't got time to oil the hinges, nor mend the window pane. Ain't a gonna need this house no longer. I'm getting ready to meet the saints. It's a perky little tune, and I didn't give the words much thought until my mother was sensitive enough to point out that the house in the song was really somebody's body, and that they were singing about getting ready to die. That freaked me out. Okay, can't I just enjoy this song, Mom? From then on, the song gave me the creeps, and I never sang it again. I still can't stand the song, but it makes a very good point. We're not bodies possessing souls. We are souls inhabiting bodies. For thousands of years, the great Osirian religion of ancient Egypt impressed upon devotees the image of a resurrected body as the key to overcoming death. Changing only a few names and images, Christianity inherited the Osirian formula and has perpetuated it through the 20th century. The Osirian formula is based on the incorrect assumption that the sun is born and dies every day and teeters toward extinction every winter. The identity of the Osirian devotee was centered in Earth, an Earth that just sits in place, helpless spectator of the sun's birth and death. This is precisely the role played by the pious Christian who can only hope to overcome death by riding the magical coattails of Christ's death and resurrection. A body hoping to come to life again. Times have changed. We know now that the sun does not die, neither does it need a magical resurrection. Shouldn't it be logical that the next step in spiritual evolution would be to harmonize with our most recent understanding of reality? It's not so hard to move our identity from the earth to the sun. Sun is on all the time. We are on all the time. There is no life after death, only life. I knew it as an infant. That's why I could never picture myself off. The solution to my crib meditation is the simple fact that there is no off. The body is bound to wear out. Sooner or later, there won't be time to fix the shingles, won't be time to fix the floor. Is it such a catastrophe to leave a house that is falling apart? Perhaps the vision I received when I was hypnotically regressed in college and the vision of the Enochian spirit, EHNB, were not pictures of an actual event, but an allegory of all death experience. It was a vision of me falling off of a tightrope. I was attempting to walk a tightrope and I fall. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if one day, when I'm incredibly old and trying to recover from a long afternoon of flamenco dancing and unbridled sex, that I close my eyes and find myself standing on the roof of my house. In front of me, I see a wire strung tightly to the house across the street. I hear my friends laughing. Once again, the sum total of my life's momentum urges me on toward new experiences, urges me on to the narrow wire that joins this old house to the new one just across the street. Again, that's from My Life with the Spirits, published by Weiser. And that's how I end an autobiography without dying. Until tomorrow, enjoy your hump day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.